Didn't leak. That's what I got to do.
When you say you're not really sure, then you do.
That's right. Look. Under
That's the angle right there.
overachiever this week.
The heart of every man craves a great adventure.
You think you can count on, you just can't. And that kind of leads us into tonight's topic if we think about it the wrong way. And so, Harold, why don't you tell us a little bit about tonight's topic?
I'm probably the only one that was living back then. But they dealt with a subject. I can't remember the title, but one of the in Acts 4, chapter 4, 25 to 26, why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth take their stand and the rulers gather together against the Lord and against his anointed one. Without God, there is no contentment. It can't be. And then Paul in Philippians chapter 4, beginning in verse 11, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And Hebrews 13:5 says, don't love money and be content with what you have. So how could Paul be content after all the rejection and abuse that he suffered? Because he had God, and that was what he needed. So I thought that perhaps a good topic would be for us to look at, how do we seek out contentment in a world that seems to be offering just the opposite.
I don't think he left anything. I think we're good to go on. Right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, the show's over. Thanks for listening. We'll just keep going.
Good setup there.
Yeah, and life keeps happening to us.
Yeah.
Right. We forget that we live in a world at war. Right. And I'm not talking about the physical war. It's a spiritual war. And yes, it is. And we say it often. And John is one that, said it first, I think, from Ransom Heart, or from, Wild at Heart. I still say it wrong. We are in a great love story, but it's set in a world at war. Yeah, in a world at war. And so we're surprised when casualties happen. But Andy, you have the first clip.
Oh boy. No, I worked really hard for that.
I think Robbie worked really hard for that.
No, that's true. Indeed, I posted the wrong one. So this is from The Pursuit of Happiness, and you think of happiness and contentment kind of being similar, but I love this clip. I hadn't thought about the movie that much, but whenever we were talking about happiness, again, contentment came up with happiness, but here, Chris, I can't remember his last name, Will Smith plays him, but he's lost his wife, he and his wife, she called up and said she was leaving. She took his boy. And then it quickly goes into he's trying to move from selling these bone density scanners into investments and a job with Dean Winter. But really what I'm trying to get here is not there's a lot that you hear, but really he's just got a chaotic life. And as you watch the whole movie, and I encourage you to see it if you haven't, is his whole life is blowing up. But to continually to bring stability to his kid, to love him, to take the time for him, and to learn lessons and not get bitter, it is an example of contentment as you watch it go. Now, he doesn't always look content. He gets frustrated. But ultimately, for him to be able to continue to function and move in the right direction, he is content.
Hello?
Hey. Yeah, sorry I couldn't make it home on time.
Chris, I missed my ship.
Yeah,
Wait a minute, hold on.
It was right then that I started thinking about Thomas Jefferson, the Declaration of Independence, and the part about our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I remember thinking, how did he know to put the pursuit part in there? And maybe happiness is something that we can only pursue, and maybe we could actually never have it.
Hello?
Chris.
Who is this?
Jay Twistle.
Hey. Yeah, of course. Well, how are you?
I'm fine. Listen, you still want to come in and talk?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right, tell you what. Come on by day after tomorrow in the morning. We're interviewing for the internships. You got a pen and paper?
Yes. Yes, I do. Hold on one second.
All right. Hello? Chris?
Go ahead. I have one.
Okay, write this number down so you can call my secretary Janice. She can give you all the specifics.
Yep.
Okay, 415
415
864
864
0256.
0256
Yeah, extension 4796.
4796.
All right, call it on.
So why I left that in there about the whole taking the number down and all, if you watch the scene instead of just listen to it, it's chaotic as he's going from one thing to the other. But really what I wanted to focus in on is when he talked about that whole idea of pursuit of happiness, it almost sounds like he's lost his hope. Because he's like, yeah, you can pursue it. They're not going to guarantee it. And there's some truth to that. With that being said, I believe happiness is definitely possible and probable with obviously putting God first. But I think it's more of joy is definitely available. It's constantly talking about that in Scripture. But the whole thing when his life was so chaotic, there was a transition, I believe, that took place from contentment to joy. Contentment, I feel like, bridges you there. It's being able to praise God regardless of what's going on. I remember when me and my wife separated, and the day that it happened, and it was It was one of the most hardest things in my life when I went through that. And a good while, I never thought life would be the same. I never thought I would smile again, to be honest with you. And I've heard other stories similar to that. But as you continue to press in and not just press in, he comes after you. He comes and loves you through it. And as that you get further away, it's not just time heals pain. God heals pain. And it's that time with God that the pain is healed. But it is a process, but finding contentment in that, the longer I fought it and just like, this isn't fair and all that, the more I suffered, the more I'd learned to be content in the circumstance I found myself in is when I really began to experience some joy and healing.
It's true. So what, you said some of it, but what gets in the way of us being content in these situations?
Yeah.
Right. What is it that gets
Expectations is the biggest thing.
Expectations. We have wrong expectations, or we have things that we should have, or we wished we would have, or those types of things, the coulda, woulda, shoulda stuff, right?
Yeah.
That gets in the way. And that's not promised to us either, but we also have an enemy.
Yes, we do.
That's in the midst of it, right? And he's whispering those things of, it's not fair,
Right. Yeah.
you know, or you should have.
Yeah.
Right. Those types of things that gets in the midst of it. And what he's ultimately trying to get after is dividing you and God.
Yeah.
Dividing you from the life
Question is
source.
hard, yeah.
Yeah. You know, you're talking about, contentment, but peace is another one we've talked about, but peace is found in the midst of chaos.
Yeah.
Right. Not an absence of chaos.
Right.
Right. And happiness is found in the midst of its own type of chaos as well.
Yeah.
I hate to use the same word, but I couldn't think of another one. So we need Jim here. I'm just saying, if he would have used the word, I would have understood.
Thesaurus.
Get a thesaurus, not a dictionary.
If I could say it.
Well, the idea of, happiness to some extent is based on what's happening, right? That's the root of it. And, joy is a completely different idea than is happiness. And so, if you pursue what's happening all the time, it ends up in a pretty carnal place, right?
Yeah, and very transitory or very temporary.
Wow.
Oh, okay. I knew. As soon as I got to I was like, I'm going to regret this.
It was going to not go well.
Yeah, that's why I gave it up to temporary.
Yeah, well, that works. It helps
Lost
me
one of our
viewership.
We lost half our viewership.
We did. We did know that word. But we do have a boot camp coming up, and it's coming up November 21st through 24th. You would go to masculinejourney.org to register. I'd like to say that more clearly, masculinejourney.org. If you're having trouble financially going, don't let that stop you. Just reach out to one of us. Our first name, add our email at masculinejourney.org, and we'll help you with what we can to get you there. But we'll talk to you after the break, and hope you have a wonderful 30 seconds or minute. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
For some reason, your computer won't accommodate both cameras. I don't know why, but I'm fine with this one camera. We'll just manipulate it back and forth as we use it. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna have more time.
It locks up the other camera every
We've got
time,
more
even
time,
if I
yeah.
use a low resolution. I don't know why.
But other than that, it's working.
Yeah, it's working. We're streaming. We had 2 viewers a minute ago, but we lost one of them as soon as you used transitory.
I didn't know how much time we had.
I know it's transitory.
With sound?
15 seconds. Is where it's at.
Yeah, transitory. I'm sitting in for Jim tonight.
Yeah. You get the clip when we come back.
Oh, good. I guess I better have some headphones so I can hear it again. Oh, yeah, that'll work.
There you go.
There's no shit right there.
Will they reach?
Oh, yeah.
And his word is always true on the Truth Network.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Masculine Journey. The reason I put the microphone in front of Dana, I can't say that lady's name, so you might know what it is.
Oh, Lauren Daigle.
Lauren Daigle. Yeah,
Yeah, just think bagel with a D.
I got it now. But we use a lot of her
Yeah,
stuff for
yeah,
bumps.
yeah.
Actually, you know, she has some great music.
Yeah, for sure.
So I love that song. It just talks about basically when things don't happen that we think should.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with it? And the answer is trust in God. Right, that he's got it. He's got something more going on than what we know, that the rest of the story is not played out yet. Right, that we only see this little snapshot of it when he's got eternity in mind. Right, and so just trusting in him that he's got your back and he's doing something for you in the midst of it, even when it doesn't feel like it or you can't see it.
Like putting this show together tonight, it's coming together quite nicely, and we're content in that because it was a last minute stuff right there. So
I have no idea what you're talking
no, we're giving up all our secrets. My bad.
Transitory.
Transitory. It was very transitory.
It was.
Our hardship. Yep.
It was. So Robbie, you have the next one.
Yeah, I love this. It's from the movie The Man of Steel, and that's Superman for most of us. One of the many series of episodes, but you know, I know that when the developers of Superman developed it, they developed it from Jesus. In other words, they were Jewish young men. They were talking about what the Messiah would look like, and actually, the S on his chest was the letter Zaddy, which would be the righteous one in Hebrew. And so I find it fascinating, this particular clip. Superman is actually surrendering to mankind. He's trying to help them out, but they won't put themselves in a position to be helped out. So he essentially has to surrender, which is very Jesus-like, by the way. And you can see that he's in complete control of the situation, in spite of how they're all reacting. They're terrified. They're scared to death. But listen to how he tries to speak into that and actually surrender, and then we'll talk about it when we come back.
Why are you surrendering to Zod? You let them handcuff me?
Wouldn't be much for surrender if I resisted. And it makes them feel more secure. And all the better.
What's the S stand for?
It's not an S. On my world, it means hope.
Well, here it's an S. How about
Hi, my name is Dr.
Emil Howell. I can see your ID tag press
along with a happy roll when I realized it.
and also see the squad shoulders in the next month. That's a tranquilizer.
You won't need it. So you can't expect us to not take precautions. You could be carrying some kind of alien pathogen.
Been here for 33 years now. Not affected anyone yet.
That you know of. We have legitimate security concerns. If you reveal your identity in this lane, why don't you do the same with us? Put cards on the table if you can.
You're scared of me because you can't control me. You don't. You never will. But that doesn't mean I'm your enemy.
No reason.
That's what I'm worried about.
That is a name. I've been given orders to hand you over to him. Do what you have to do.
Yeah, you can't help but miss the note on 33 years he's been there, just saying. If you miss that little tag, you kind of miss the situation. But Oswald Chambers does this amazing devotional, and actually this week he talked about that when Jesus came, he said, "My peace I give to you," right? And his peace is phenomenal, but you have to go get it to some extent. And then when you seek his face, you can imagine his face in your current situation, in the happenings of happiness, so to speak. And all this stuff is happening. Well, how's Jesus reacted? Did you catch him by surprise? Does he not know what's, in your pocket there? And does he, not have the situation under control? But by the same token, you can hear the compassion, and you can hear, I'm trying to convey to Lois, it's going to be okay. But by the same token, there's this unbelievable strength under control, right? And so that idea of this piece is at our disposal whenever we want to get our look off of ourselves and off of our trying to control our situation and allow the person that actually can do something about it to give us peace and control it. I think it's a wonderful opportunity he gives us minute by minute. And it's amazing to me how many times I don't turn towards him when it would have been so easy.
Yeah, the enemy's really good at pulling us into the small story and not, we don't see the larger story that's going on around us. And so it's good to take the focus off of the person in the mirror, the person you're mad at, or whatever, and look towards Jesus in the midst of it. Danny, you actually have the next clip if you'd like to tell us a little bit about it.
It's from a series called Designated Survivor and stars Kiefer Sutherland. And the premise of the show is Kiefer Sutherland becomes president because there was an attack on the Capitol and it killed the sitting president and all of Congress, everybody, just wiped everybody out. And he was the one that he was part of the cabinet. And so he by default became president in this whole chaotic scene. And the scene that I pulled out of this series was they're going to have the funeral for the president and he's going to do the eulogy. And he's had an interchange with the president's son. And he pulls him into the Oval Office to apologize to him. But he also, what we're going to discover is that this young man has a wrong view of his father, who has now passed away. So there's this chaos scene of all that's going on, dealing with deaths and all the chaos. And in the midst of this is an interchange between Kirkman, who Kiefer Sutherland's, and this young man. And he learned something about his father. And we can talk about it on the other side.
Why am I here? Please, come. I feel I owe you an apology. Because I agreed to have you brought over to Westwood earlier today to tell stories about your father for the eulogy that I was supposed to deliver. It was insensitive, and I'm sorry. But I remember that I actually have a story for you. I felt like the time my dad fired you. No. This was when your father took almost an hour out of a cabinet meeting to tell us all about your spring recital at Williams last year. No, I think you're mistaken. Marked off the file in concerto number 2. My father wasn't there, yet Abby was. In the back of the room. I think I would know. He had one Secret Service detail that was wearing a baseball cap. He didn't want to take the focus off of you. Oh, he went on and on about your craft, your diligence, your work ethic, your talent. He was so proud. It was nice. And at the end, he gave everyone a program. I asked my assistant Wyatt to go to my old office and bring it here for me. Is that? Tyler, I think he was always there. I'm sorry he couldn't tell you himself. Would you, mind if that would be my honor. It's why I asked you here.
The phrase in there was, I think he was always there. And of course, he's talking about his earthly father, but when we take that into spiritual, our heavenly father's always there, no matter what the chaos is going on. And there's so many times, we were at an event a few weeks ago, and I heard somebody, we were praying for a guy, and somebody asked him to visualize Jesus in the room of a traumatic event in his childhood. And it made me realize that, if I can visualize whatever was going on in my life or whatever is going on, that Jesus is in the room because he's always there, and he's always there. And it changes my view of everything. And I can find that contentment in chaos or whatever I'm looking for. I was thinking about when I saw this topic was years ago when my daughter, her mother took her to New York for 4.5 years, and I didn't see her. And my life was total chaos. And what I didn't see was God's hand in any of it, because I was pretty rebellious and pretty much walked away from the faith and all kinds of different stuff. But it was years later when I got to see some of the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. I could literally see God's hand in lots of different things because he was always there. And that's kind of where I went with this topic was, that no matter what's going on, I mean, I bet if we went around the room, there's literally chaos going on in all of our lives in some way, shape, fashion, or form. But reminding that God's always there. And he's allowed this, that, and the other, but he's always there. And he's like the man of steel. He's in full control.
Yeah, when it's funny, before I didn't know exactly what you were going to say, obviously, but I was thinking about, what helps you get through contentment or get to that place of contentment. It's looking at the past victories, right? That only through time you now have clarity, as you were describing, that, sometimes I can't see it when I'm in the midst of it, as we were saying, but when you look back and say, okay, now I have more clarity on it. And I can look at that and say, okay, I will also have clarity down the road, hopefully, on this and see where God's hand was in the midst of it, and learn about all the people that were praying for me and all those kinds of things. But any other quick thoughts before we wrap up?
I think a lot of our discontent stems from the fact that we're selfish.
Yeah.
And that we have the wrong vision. We're doing too much navel gazing and being disappointed when we find Lent, when we ought to be looking out at the world, the people that need help.
Okay. You said naval. I was thinking about, the Navy. So I was confused for a minute.
Different kind of naval.
Yeah. I was like, all right, that's interesting.
Of course, if you have an Audi, you don't have Lent.
Yeah, it's transitionary. Anyway, we'll talk to you. Lots of money well this week.
I wanted an orange.
We'll talk with you next week. Have a great week.
Sorry if I missed you.
Yeah, that was.
I had to get that in there.
Slow blow. Naval.
Oh, he said naval, and that's what I thought. He said, I'm thinking Navy.
Naval gazing.
Yeah, I'm like, I was looking at warships. I don't know.
Aircraft carriers.
Aircraft carriers. I've done that.
Submarine. Good job.
He knows we're on the show, right?
Huh? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Stretching.
I hope so.
But that all come together in a short time now.
Yeah, his.
We're not only.
I don't think Keith gave him a lot of.
Yeah.
His timing in there is way off from whatever you were doing. His minutes got another minute and a half.
Well,
2 minutes.
that's where I was off. Is
Yeah.
because everybody has a different cadence, and so when he's saying a minute, I think he's
Oh.
talking about a minute until the bump music starts playing,
All right.
and where Keith tells me a minute till the end of the show.
All right. Yep.
And so that's why at the end of the going into the mid break, I thought we were out of time, and I just stopped. And it's just a different producer from producer.
Yes, it is. Nick's usually mine. For most of what I do, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He rolled with the punches because, believe me, he had nothing. Plus, it's kind of over his time. You're not supposed to say this late. So he's kind of just helping out.
Okay. So what was the plan to keep living here?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, it would have been nice to get an email or something saying, hey, I'm not going to be there this next week. I mean, I wanted to have vacation. But it'd be nice to kind of know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It would have been.
Yeah.
Full time. So, meanwhile,
Back at the ranch.
you got your clip.
Be nice to kind of know.
Second-hand Lions, third-hand Lions.
Yeah,
fourth-hand.
and Rodney's foot.
Sound is coming through.
So we have.
Yeah, the sound's coming through the camera, so you can't. Oh, you hear the clips only because it's coming out of the speaker.
Right.
That's a good idea. Right on.
Yeah, you're down there without any headphones on for the first part of that one.
It works, but I can get the camera out of this to work, so I can point it at different people.
Any viewers?
We got up to 3 at one point, but we've had one loyal, maybe Terry, I don't know.
Could be. Your thing could be on.
But, yeah, that's what we've had. That one viewer's happy. It's probably Jan. She's contented. We didn't give her a situation of lack of contentedness. It's really weird though. I can get that other camera to pull up everything. When I go to add it to the stage, it just freezes.
Huh.
So I don't know. It's on my camera number.
Oh, that one over there?
Right.
The Danny cam.
Yeah, the Danny cam.
Well, it's only standing on 2 legs. So, I mean,
I changed it to Sam Cam.
Sam cam.
Yeah. It could be where our viewership's down.
It probably is, man. That's the orange shirt.
They're probably used to the orange shirt by now.
Yeah, every week, man. Till it cools off, then I'll wear other colors. All the guys at work like, why do you wear orange? I don't know in the summer. Because the other ones are black and gray, and they're incredibly hot, miserably hot. It's a dark gray like that, and it's just like,
Yeah, my dog is black. He's got some tan, but all his back. And I'm telling you, he doesn't have to be outside very long at all. And you touch him, and it is really hot. Speaking of which, how's your dog doing? Is your dog doing better now?
Mm-hmm. He's doing fine. Yeah, he's fine at home. It's just me.
Yeah. Now this is the one that chewed his tail off, right?
Yeah. Yep. He's fine.
Good.
I'm the issue now. Yeah. Just trying to get through each day and.
So you ready? You're next.
Just get through.
Sure.
Whatever I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I would even say. Things changing.
please tell me thank you for covering that.
Yeah. Trusting God, it'll come right out of your mouth. Oh, we're up to 2. We've doubled our watchership.
Hey, we're
back to 1.
100%.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I insulted you.
That must have been an accident.
That was probably me when I checked it out.
All right, so do you want to come back and do your clip? I mean, do you want him to set it up and you can talk about it?
Well, you
don't have to use it, by the way, either.
Yeah,
Don't
we
feel
do.
obligated.
We need 3 clips in this segment because we're not going to be able to talk enough.
Yeah, it's plenty.
okay. I mean, if we need to do it, yeah.
Well, I mean, we can save it.
I'll sacrifice the time for other people since I've had such a long intro.
No, I hope you didn't take that wrong. I was saying you were thorough, not long-winded.
I'll tell you what, Harold.
You did a great job of.
I'll come back and I'll do mine, and then we'll do yours later.
Okay.
But you have to set the show up again.
Okay. Well,
Man.
I won't do the whole thing.
You give a guy a compliment and it's interpreted as an insult. You know I don't insult you.
Not at all. Just trying to have a little fun.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, you came with the scripture though, man. You had it. You thought it out. I was like,
I think he was thoroughly transitory.
Transitory, yeah.
Temporarily.
Well, I'm almost tempted to say the word trans is not in my vocabulary. But
You can say it.
Get it,
That's all That is horrible.
That's you're streaming it.
And I knew
you guys realize
when I
we're
started to
streaming.
say that I was going to have a problem saying it.
Just
And I
so,
was like, just shut up. Just don't say it. And I
Yeah.
couldn't resist it.
this is on Facebook.
Yeah.
I can say, Hey man,
Yeah.
get a dictionary. That's not a problem.
Yeah, speaking of the thesaurus.
Porky Pig.
That's all.
What did you call him, Porky Pig, that time?
That's all.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll stumble on this next, at some point in this next thing. Oh, I gotta look up what my shows are. I don't even know what they are.
What's your shows?
The movie, because I've never seen either one of them. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Stutters, but when he sang, he never.
No, that's crazy, isn't it?
Oh wait, what's going on there? Ooh, that was starting at the middle. Good thing I looked at that. There we go. It's at the beginning now. Ooh, I just saw the little line. I'm like,
Yeah, that I'm right in the middle.
Sorry I shared our secrets. I was just amazed at how it came together so quick. I mean, we didn't have any clips. We didn't have that work. Everything's working. Bumps in, all of it. So
yeah.
Nick's good. I'm telling you, he's good. He's really good.
He adapted well to that.
We got what, a minute?
We train him well at the Truth Deck where they come in, nothing's working. All the stations are off the air. You have to roll with the punches.
It's a fire drill. Yeah.
Live fire training. Right?
That's our object lesson of contentment right there, isn't it?
It is. Man, Steve.
About a minute.
About a minute? Okay.
Sure, it's funny. I didn't catch the 33 years, but as soon as he said it, you went.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like I don't say it at the end of every show.
Yeah. That's true. You can just walk. Jesus walked everywhere. Yeah.
33.
Got everywhere he needed to go. I'm paraphrasing. I stood at you like, hey.
Start making noises.
Coming to you from an entrenched barricade deep in the heart of Central North Carolina. Masculine Journey After Hours. A time to go deeper and be more transparent on the topic covered on this week's broadcast. So sit back and join us on this adventure. The Masculine Journey After Hours. Right here, now.
Welcome to Masculine Journey After Hours. We're glad that you're with us this week. We are very content that you're here with us this week, and we appreciate it. And anyway, we are talking about the topic of contentment. Are we not, Harold? That's your topic yet again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mr. Topic is what we're going to have to call you from now on.
Yeah, we were looking for a topic, and it occurred to me that there's so much discontent in our world that it seems like most people are very unhappy about a lot of things. And
Or everything.
we're a divided country, almost split down the middle. Seems like everybody wants to be in the majority and have things their way. And so when we're in the minority and having to live by the rules of the majority leads to discontent. So that was part of it, is how can we have contentment in the midst of things that are not what we want? And I'm not going to do the whole introduction like I did for the first show.
Yeah, it seems like there should be some scripture or something.
Yeah, that was
3 or 4.
That was quite a bit.
It's like half the New Testament. It's great.
I'll just refer to Paul and his ability to be content in whatever state he found himself.
Yeah.
In fact, my sweetheart talks about that when we first moved to North Carolina. She was very unhappy about it, and she was reading that scripture, and she said, "Lord, does that mean North Carolina?" And it came back, absolutely. Now she loves it.
Well, I was just giving you a hard time, Harold. You did an excellent job of setting up the first show and with all the scripture that you had. And so I really appreciate you putting all that effort into it. So, we just like to teach it like we always do.
Of course.
Yeah.
I would be discontented if you didn't.
That's right. That's right. Well, actually, I have the first clip of this show. And this is not a clips on contentment. It's the opposite. It's when life happens and you get angry with God. And so this is new for me, not that topic, because I've lived that topic in the past. But these are both Christian movie clips, which I rarely use one just because I don't watch a lot of Christian movies. Not that I don't appreciate them, I just don't always enjoy them. And some I enjoy a lot, some not as much. But these are two clips. One's from called A Question of Faith, is one of the first part of the clip you're going to hear. And what's happened here is you have a man who's supposed to be stepping into a role as a pastor and taking over a church, but he'd lost his son. And so the deacon or the person making that decision tells him he's not going to get to church quite yet. I want you to listen to that part of it. Then you'll transition into another story from a movie called Noble, in which a pregnant lady goes to a place where nuns are, a nunnery, I guess you call it that. Andy, you got a word for that one? What would they have it?
It's a convent.
Convent, thank you, nunnery. I like that one. Anyway, but when she goes, she doesn't realize she signed a thing saying that they can give her baby away. And so she finds out that her baby's been adopted. She didn't know it was going to happen. And what you hear is her actually talking to God. And I think it's interesting, and I'll come back and tell you why I played those clips.
You're going to take away the truth from me. I'm in the church. Anger towards God. We're going to be fine. Yes. But what happens when the loses someone? God will.
I don't know what to say to you, except that Mary don't know what it's like to raise a son. I'm not being blasphemous. I'm not comparing myself to you. But if I stop believing now, I won't be able to keep going. I won't survive. I hope you will explain this to me very soon. So until then, you're going to have to listen to me swear and curse and shout, and I won't be asking for your forgiveness. Sorry about that.
But then she just asked for forgiveness. No, the reason I liked both of those clips, because they sound real, right? When something happens, especially, I can't imagine losing a child and how hard that would be. It's hard enough to lose other loved ones, right? But to be a child, to lose a child would be horrible. But I like that in both of those cases, you have a person that's speaking over the first guy that wants to be the pastor, and he says, you will be, but first you got to get this stuff out of you. It takes him from a place of anger to a place of potential vulnerability, to where he can address that with God. Because as long as he just stays angry, the enemy has him where he wants him, right? Because he's not letting God enter into it. He's staying mad. And what I loved about the second clip is she's taking it right where she needs to. She's taking it right to God, and she's leaving it there, and she's being vulnerable in front of him, and she's speaking her heart, because God already knows it anyway, right? And so it puts her in a place that he can start doing work again in her life and getting her to that place where she can find contentment after something horrible, and of the man after something horrible's happened, eventually they can get back there. And the reason that I wanted to go in that direction was part of the year I've been having. You know, I lost my brother at Christmas time, which I've talked about on the air, and then I lost his wife, my sister-in-law, about 5 months later. And probably for one of the first times in my life when I've lost somebody close to me or a couple people close to me, it didn't go there, right? It didn't go to the place where I was mad at God. I was never upset with God over it. I was very full of grief. My heart was broken, but there was no anger towards God, because I know God's heart hurt as well. You know, of course, hopefully, you know, my brother's there with him, my sister-in-law's there with him, and, you know, they're getting to enjoy life without any pain and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it was a real victory. You know, I still have to deal with the grief, and I'm still dealing with it, but it was a real victory that I didn't let the enemy put it in a position where it was between God and I.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what his whole goal is, from the Garden of Eden all the way back. He's trying to send two messages to you. God's got holding out on you, or he's going to turn his back on you, and you can't trust his heart. And that's what he tries to do. And he knows when he can get you there, he takes you away from the lifeline, you know, that life preserver is not going to be able to reach it, right? That you're not going to catch it. It's going to be there. God's going to throw it, but you're going to ignore it, or you're not going to see it because you're so full of rage and you're full of other things. And so I think it's important to know that if that's where you find yourself today, that you're angry with God, that's okay. He's big enough. He can handle that, but just don't stay there. Tell him about it. Let him hear it, right? And then he'll start to work more fully in your life because you'll start to let him in, because those cracks will let the light in and let him find some life in there. And so I just encourage you, wherever you're at today, to know that he's working hard to try to reach out to his loving daughter, his loving son that he loves dearly. But he's there for you. So that's where I went with the clip. Now we're going to transition over to Harold's clip, and then we'll get to Rodney's clip after that. So, Harold, yours is from one of the best movies ever, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Secondhand Lines. I got to thank my buddy Andy for getting this one, because I was not able to get a clip, and he got this one for me. But it's a great scene. Walter, the little boy, is calling to try to catch up with his mother, who told him she was going to be taking a class to be able to become, I think, a court stenographer.
That's correct. Yeah.
And of course, she had lied to him, and she couldn't be found. So he's going to run away. And so Garth and Hub are tracking him down, and that's what you'll hear in this, and how they try to deal with him.
Yeah.
And we find contentment on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it in the movie, the other thing they reference in the clip is Garth and Hub have a lot of money. And so their family keeps coming around trying to take the money, and one of them's with them riding in the car. So you hear some of that. So just for context, but here we go. Oh, let me get back to the beginning of it, because you would enjoy that more, I think, if we did that. So let's try that.
I don't know why you have to drive. It's my call. Stop playing. Find a kid who can get my mind. Oh, stay in the car. Come on. Pick up. Get out of the car. Out of here next week. Go 4 or 6. Come here, you're not having to work. No. Why? Made up. The Montana kid. Better match that one in the house right up. I've been to the Arctic before. I don't want to go back. Kid, I know a 40-year-old lousy mother. Guess I should get going. Please, Lord. Listen here, Dad. Just wait. Come back to the house. And stay a while. My relatives don't hate it. I'll bet they hate it so much. They go away all alone. Crazy, no. Just my word. Come on. Help us out here. Little while. So
Yeah, they do a great job of making the boy think that he's the one doing the help. But it ends up that these old guys become very attached to the young man, and he brings a lot of contentment into their life.
Yeah, it's, you know, when I first heard about the movie, one of the guys I was working with told me about it, and it sounded just kind of hokey. And it really became one of my favorite movies of all time. Just the effect that people have on one another's lives, because you know no one's content. Hub's definitely not content. Walter's not content. Maybe Garth is, you know, a little bit more content than the rest of them, but because of the love and because of the way they mature together in the relationship, there's healing and there's contentment that's found. It's a really good movie, and it's pretty funny at times too.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah, Andy, you got anything you want to add about the movie? You got nothing? I just like to think on the spot. You know how that is.
Yeah. So I can say thesaurus.
Thesaurus.
I put myself out there again.
You did. I appreciate your effort. You get an A for effort.
No, Hub, you know, in that he was the one that was he didn't really want the kid to come around, but in the movie, later in the movie, he really, you can see an affection for the kid and Walter and just the connection that they have. But again, it started out where he was just, the kid seemed to be an annoyance, you know, and not something that he didn't want to invest the time or effort into him. But it was so funny, you know, as you hear the plot twist or whatever, where it was like Hub did want to get out from under that greedy cousin or whatever that was there. And he was like, oh, yeah, kid come live with us. Well, he go away. Yeah, I'll go for that.
Yeah, exactly. Now I can find a better right. Rodney, that brings us up to you.
Here we go. Yeah, I don't think there's a real big evidence of what's going on in this clip inside of everything else that's going on here. What we've got is a man, Vodi Bachman. He's talking about his life now going into this church and what he's going to do, what he's going to be, where he's going to go with this. And the hardest part to get out of anybody is, what are you doing next? What are you going to go to? Where are you going to go? And he talks into that with this first couple of minutes here of this talk, where he can kind of just lean into it and start to tell a little bit about where he's going to go.
During the introduction, he said, you know, there's a lot of degrees from a lot of places, and he pointed out just one place. And the one place he pointed out was University of Oxford. And yes, I studied there. If you know what they call a fire-breathing, gospel-preaching, 6-day creationist who studied at Oxford, an idiot. You're marginalized because you might have an education, but it's not the right education unless you're operating from the accepted worldview. One of the ways that they marginalize us is they continually march out people who name the name of Christ, but believe little and practice less. They love to march these people out. If you are part of an organization that names the name of Christ, and they love to bring people like that out into the public eye so that they can say, look, here are some Christians who are not wide-eyed idiots. Here are some Christians whose worldview is aligned with ours. Here are some Christians who are Marxists. Here are some Christians who support abortion, who support same-sex marriage. Here they are, right here. These other people out there are the narrow-minded bigots, so marginalized, particularly in our day. We're marginalized if we don't toe the line on some very specific issues. One of those I've already alluded to, creation and evolution. If you believe that there's a God who created the world, you're marginalized.
And there's no way for us to come in and talk about the marginalization and where we're at if we don't actually get into where we're at in the world. Where are we at compared to where other people are at, and how is this interacting between us? So that's one of the things where we have to make sure that we are out there still speaking the truth and talking about the things that are going on in the world without just coming in and just settling and letting them talk, because then they're just going to run over from the beginning.
Robbie?
So a couple of weeks ago, I just had a, personal experience with this. So I was struggling with some kidney stones that apparently were chasing one another. according to the report I got later. Anyway, it was a real painful situation. And I'd had him, previously about 3 months before that. So this is getting a little old, And I remember climbing into bed and going, really? Are we here again? Do we really have to do this? Because it was just incredibly painful, right? And it was dark in the room, and I was not in a good place because I was navel gazing, as my friend Harold would say. I was looking at my belly button, and it was painful. And I glanced up at the ceiling, and I've stayed in this bedroom, I don't know, for 5 years since my dad died, whatever. And I look up, and there's a ceiling fan up there, and it is throwing a shadow. It was pitch dark in the room, but it was throwing a shadow of a cross on the roof that was just took my breath. Like I just saw him, as you were talking about, he was there all along. He was right there, and he was just winking at me like, I'm right here. I'm right with you. And I can't even, there's no explaining the amount of, like, he went from this unbelievable amount of grief and pain and chaos, like we've been talking about throughout the show, to just going, oh man, thank you. I know you are. It was just awesome.
Well, we have plenty of time to talk more about contentment or anything else you guys want to talk about.
Well, that makes me think. I mean, I don't want to share the same story, but it was very similar. It was back in December of 22 when Mom passed. It was the same time I was going through kidney stones. And she passed, and I was trying to plan for the funeral. And I'm like, what else, God? And I had an appointment I had to go make that day, and they had taken out the catheter, and it wasn't doing right. And I was it was excruciating, and I could not get peace. I was just tormented in pain. And I remember just laying down and trying to be still. And he came to me and he said, be still and know that I'm God. And shortly thereafter, I fell asleep. And then I woke up a few hours later with no pain. And I haven't felt that pain again since. And he comes to us in those times, not to always make things, just make it easy, make the pain go away instantly. He can give you a cross sign, on the ceiling, or he can do something like that. But he's gracious in those situations. And that contentment, I believe that's growth. I think I've heard Rodney talk about it a bunch on here about the impact of the Wild Heart message and the gospel, that he wasn't a very content person, and neither was I, and how God steps in through your maturity, through your pain. He proves that he's there, and that's the big thing. He proves that he's there in a variety of ways, and when he does, I think that truly can bring on that contentment, because in that context of where it's a great love story, but we're in war while we're at it, but you have all that, and you just can be content in knowing that he's got it. The life is not going to be easy, but you got somebody with you.
I agree. But it's hard when you're in the middle of it. Right? It's hard to have that vision. I've been battling some health stuff, and last couple of days were really good. And then all of a sudden tonight, not so good. And it's just frustrating, and I know God's got it. He's in control. But at the end of the day, you're still just tired of it. You're tired of whatever you're dealing with. I'm tired of financial troubles. I'm tired of health issues. I'm tired of fill in the blank. I'm tired of feeling this way, or hurting, or grieving, or whatever it might be. And it's hard to have perspective. So what do people do, when they're in the middle of that, right? Because sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees, right? And so I think that's a saying. I think that's right. But, what do people do in the midst of it? Yeah, they know, okay, eventually it's going to be okay, but right now it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember that your objective was draining the swamp when you're up to your elbows in alligators.
Yeah. True.
I don't know if I ever told this story or not, but I told it the other day to some guys, and I was at an event out in Tennessee one time. It was a ministry event, and the pastor that was up there called all the ordained evangelists to the stage, and which included me. So I went to the stage, and we're up on this. I mean, it's like a church 2,000 people in there or whatever. And I think so. We're all up on the stage, probably 50 or 60 of us. And he starts praying for people and touching them on the head, and they're falling out. I'm talking falling out. And he comes to me and he touches me, and I don't fall out. And I'm sitting there with my eyes closed. You know, we're supposed to be praying and that kind of thing. And so when I open my eyes, it looked like Jonestown the morning after. Everybody has fallen out but me. And the enemy whispered, you know, because I've struggled with identity issues and insecurity issues all my life. And I'm standing there looking around, and I can hear the voices going, yeah, there's something wrong with you. And I'm standing there, and I'm telling you, there's bodies all around me. And I think so. I just kind of just look around, and I just step over some people and go back to my seat. And I am just in the middle of chaos because I don't know how to process this. And so I go to bed, and I'm thinking, I want to go home. And we still got a whole other day there or whatever. And I just don't want to be around anybody. And I mean, the enemy had taken me out. And next morning, I get up and supposed to go to another session thing. And I look out this little gazebo that a friend of mine that came with us on the trip, he's sitting out there, and he and I had done a lot of different stuff together. And we're sitting there, and he goes, last night. And when he said that, I thought, oh God, here it comes. He gonna go, what happened to you? But that's not what he said. He said, when I looked up there and you were the only guy standing up here, he said, God told me right then and there, he said, you see that? There's the last man standing. You can count on him when you can't count on nobody else. And it just flipped the whole script in my life because we see things wrong. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we, as I heard a few weeks ago, a guy prayed, Lord, where I have learned you wrong, correct me. And that's been kind of my prayer the past 2 weeks. Lord, if I've learned you wrong somewhere in my discontentment, in my chaos, show me the right way to look at you. Because, and that's why he puts people in our lives. And that's why there's friction and that kind of thing, because he's trying to correct our vision. So.
Yeah, definitely things that you can pray for. Another way of saying that is perspective, right? Having the right perspective or having the right context, you know, or just, God, you may not give me either one of those, but how do I step into a place of trust? You know, when I don't think you're abandoning me, but it feels like I'm all alone.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a dangerous place where the enemy can say, okay, yeah, you see, God's not there. Right. And again, that's his goal. But just, you know, at least saying, I don't even know how to pray about this, God, but you do. And so just guide me in that.
Yeah. Well, what also should give us comfort, here I go stumble on words, is really when you look at the Bible, I mean, it was all over the place. Guys didn't have it easy, you know, guys and girls. I mean, lived tough lives. I mean, there was truly difficult things that they had to come through. Paul being one who has most of the quotes on being content. I mean, look at what his life was. So it is a state of mind and a state of heart, much more than it is a condition of your life.
And I think there are times, and I said it earlier in the show, that it's okay to be frustrated.
No doubt.
Right? You know, look at David.
No, absolutely.
Right.
No.
And he was all over the place. And sometimes he was incredibly happy and sometimes not so much.
Well, it gets into that whole thing of letting God work you through the whole process.
There you get something you want to add?
Yeah, just a second, guys. You know, I've been dealing with the thing of self-control for a while. And I think my contentment comes when I can control myself. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? It doesn't. Yeah, but I mean, you have to go through to actually gain that thing. You know, everything comes with a struggle. You know, I think it says that these things come to they strengthen you. So I think self-control is my thing of contentment when I can control myself.
Yeah, it's having that discipline.
Yes.
Right. Robbie, you got something to add?
Yeah, it's actually a gift. Self-control.
It's
a gift of the Spirit.
It is. Yep.
It's really a cool gift. And, you know, the others come first.
You know, but really, Robbie, and I know we're short, I don't think we can do the others without self-control.
Yeah. Talk to you next week.
Amen.
MasculineJourney.org and Love Somebody Well this week.
What?
Well, you know that before self-control comes gentleness or meekness, depending on how you want to translate it. And that too is the same word that Jesus said, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. But it's actually, that word that Moses was, and all that kind of stuff. When you really think about what it takes to be totally empty, to be humble, to be meek, actually, you can't have self-control without meekness, and you can't have meekness without self-control. And to an extent, you can't have none of them without peace, and you actually can't have them. It's almost like it's a package.
It is a package, Robbie. And the thing is, I've been thinking about it for a while. I almost saw this as the fruit of the spirit as all these things that's blooming off of the thing. But and for me, I saw self-control as a taproot. And I'm saying if you can't do this, you'll never be able to do that. If you can't control yourself, you'll never be able to produce that love or that joy.
As long as you don't go to the self part of self-control, the challenge of it.
Exactly.
The challenge of that, interestingly, is again, you end up navel gazing, like somehow or another, I'm supposed to control this, and it doesn't necessarily.
Well, exactly. But if again, if it's all coming from, if you're not trying to promote yourself,
right,
but you have humbled yourself enough to understand that the only reason I can do this is because of what God has given, and be amazed what God has given you, not to be boisterous in these little things of your self-control. But I understand what you're saying, and it is a circle. But
yeah, that's it. I love that you brought it up, because it's a powerful stuff. Very cool.